In today's era of deglobalization and intensifying trade friction, JOBY maintains a vertically integrated supply chain covering more than 95% and uses absolutely no Chinese-made components. Thanks to this, JOBY enjoys a very strong advantage in US manufacturing, one of its unique vertically integrated strengths. Toyota also operates about 30 production facilities in the United States that manufacture not only automobiles but also transmission and engine parts, so when the market fully opens, it will be easy to tap additional capacity. In addition, Toyota is providing parts and electronic hardware to JOBY. They even have a facility in Salinas. Toyota's annual production volume in the United States is about 275,000 units. While JOBY will establish its own plant in Dayton, Toyota will play a central role. Toyota even has the capacity to build 500 aircraft per year, although they are not cars. Compared with 275,000 automobiles, 500 air taxis are clearly within reach, because air taxi production resembles automotive manufacturing. In many respects, the collaboration between Toyota, the global leader in vehicle sales and safety, and JOBY gives them a greater edge over other air taxi companies. Even amid rollercoaster news such as tariff controversies, JOBY continues to make steady progress, moving forward undisturbed by the noise. Toyota has invested nearly $1 billion in JOBY. This example shows just how critical it is to their strategy. Toyota is far more than a simple automobile OEM. In other words, what you have just heard means that JOBY represents a transformational turning point for Toyota. In the next news item, JOBY has posted a job opening in Dubai, UAE, for a flight and ground operations manager. It appears JOBY plans to send an aircraft back to Dubai this summer, and the job posting supports that plan. When an aircraft is deployed, a flight and a ground support team is naturally required, and by the end of the year they will be in Dubai. Because this is the first new aircraft category approved by the FAA in more than 80 years, stringent safety verification is essential. JOBY, however, has designed its air taxi vehicle to be even safer than conventional airplanes or helicopters and is smoothly obtaining certification from the FAA. The key point is that the aircraft keeps flying and passengers notice nothing even if a single motor or battery fails. Recently, JOBY announced that the aircraft can still fly safely even if 2 of its 6 motors fail. Even common sense tells us that an air taxi is far safer than the airplanes or helicopters ordinary people ride in. A JOBY air taxi has 6 motors, whereas a typical aircraft relies on 2 main engines. If even one of those airplane engines fails, it can lead to catastrophic failure and a crash. By contrast, if 2 motors fail on JOBY's air taxi, 4 remain to land safely somewhere on the ground. And this capability has already been fully validated. In addition, each motor in the JOBY air taxi receives power through 2 independent feeds, providing a much higher level of safety than conventional aircraft. JOBY is now well past the midpoint of Stage 4 of FAA certification and is effectively in the final stretch of the entire process. I will explain this in more detail later. They are also running simulator and CAE-based tests in parallel to prevent real-world accidents in advance. Uber will play a key role in building the Elevate OS platform, integrating aerial ride-sharing and ground mobility data. Customer movement pattern data will become a highly valuable asset for service expansion. Competition is fierce among the hundreds of eVTOL companies, but once JOBY crosses the finish line, it will gain a strong competitive edge. That is because vertically integrated companies like JOBY can minimize supply chain risk even amid the deglobalization trend. By directly controlling critical components, they enjoy a clear advantage over others. Everything is moving in JOBY's favor. This is the production curve of the Ford Model T. The growth was anything but linear. The day certification is obtained will be a watershed moment, followed by rapid scale-up. Tesla also experienced a huge gap between prototype build and mass production. Here is where the Japanese automaker will flex its muscles. By adopting a vertically integrated manufacturing approach, JOBY has secured significant competitiveness over Archer. Over time, gaps will emerge in price and production volume. Archer Aviation will encounter limits when it has to switch to its next-generation aircraft or to solid-state or hydrogen batteries. BYD, the automaker backed by Warren Buffett, also distinguished itself by adopting vertical integration, as did Tesla. In other words, even if Archer can commercialize in the short term, it will be less competitive than JOBY in the medium to long term. As noted in the last quarterly results, 95% of JOBY's composite parts already meet specifications for FAA certification. Judging by the latest announcements, obtaining FAA approval should pose little problem. Once the remaining systems are finished, the parts already queued for assembly will be ready one after another. Many expect to see only a single aircraft after type certification, but several will appear simultaneously. Like the aircraft that flew in front of Mount Fuji a few months ago, a unit can be assembled and flown just a few months after leaving the factory. On the day the TC type certification is issued, there will be a surprise bigger than most people anticipate. JOBY is also moving faster on FAA certification. In Stage 3, they only had to submit documentation, which allowed the process to proceed quickly. Archer also moved quickly through Phase 3, but progress in Phase 4 is slower because it involves testing the actual aircraft. Archer Aviation has just begun Phase 4, whereas JOBY has already completed a significant portion of it, showing a large gap that could allow JOBY to finish Phase 4 within this year. Importantly, Phase 5 only requires submission of documentation, so Phase 4 is effectively the final step. In other words, JOBY will commercialize more safely and quickly than other air taxi companies and will attract many orders, attention, and capital investment. As the leader in UAM, it is highly likely to widen its competitive advantage even further. Using air taxis in a small country like Korea is meaningful, but they are even more significant in places like Japan, the United States, Europe, and China. These countries are several to dozens of times larger than Korea, so there is high demand for helicopter travel. Air taxis reduce the time spent traveling to airports, crossing congested bridges, and commuting. Because air taxis like JOBY's, powered by 6 independent motors, are far safer than helicopters or airplanes, there is virtually no reason not to adopt them. In addition, in major developed countries including Japan, taxi fares are quite expensive, so air taxi fares can be set more competitively relative to distance, which further enhances JOBY's appeal and the competitiveness of air taxis. Demand is especially high in Japan, which has many islands. Since air taxis are almost like cars, Toyota is JOBY's second largest shareholder and supports the production of key components. This demand is precisely why additional capital continues to flow into JOBY. Toyota is preparing, together with JOBY, to pioneer not only the ground vehicle market, but also the global air taxi market. At this stage, Toyota will not let go of its support as it seeks to secure a leading position in air taxis as well. As the world's top automobile company, Toyota is moving to take the #1 spot in the air taxi market too. After reviewing this overall situation and even JOBY's design plans, we set a target price of $80 for JOBY. This is not a buy-sell recommendation. Although we have tried to conduct a detailed analysis, there may be some errors, so please exercise caution and use this information for reference only.